In the early days of Long Beach history, men took to the sea to save lives. That tradition continues to this day. Back in the early 1900s, Long Beach was the fastest growing city in America. And no wonder. Railroad service and the brand new Pacific Electric trolley had made the city easily accessible, turning it into a popular commercial hub and resort. Tourists by the thousands beat a path to the Virginia Hotel, a large indoor swimming pool called The Plunge, and the #1 attraction, the Queen of Beaches.
They used to run 3 and 4 trains down here. Trains. They were filled with people coming into Long Beach for the weekend. And then we had people out of Pasadena coming in here. Awful lot of people from Pasadena were coming in.
But visitors weren't used to the area's strong surf and dangerous riptides. So the Virginia Hotel and the Plunge each hired a lifeguard, or as they called it, a tag man. Why? Because that's how people underwater were rescued. They'd be tagged. Okay, grabbed by the arms, legs, the swimsuit, the hair. A few years later, in 1906, the city of Long Beach hired a tag man of its own, the beginning of the Long Beach Lifeguard Service.
They got a salary of $65 per month when they were working for the city of Long Beach. And that salary continued through until 1919.
By that time, Long Beach employed 16 lifeguards, including a young recruit by the name of Roy Miller, or as he was better known, Dutch.
We had our bathing suit and that was all, and everything then was grabbing a hold of the back of the suit and pulling them in, which was fine.
Dutch became captain of the lifeguards in 1922.
My first impressions of Dutch Miller was a very strong man, and you better pay attention. Do what he says, and I found out later he really meant it.
Dutch always told us, and I'll never forget this. One day, I was at the lagoon, and he came down, and he said, "You know, Dick, you see that family over there?" And I looked over, and I saw a family. I said, "Yes." He says, "That family expects to go home with all of their children and all of their, adults with them. It's your job to make sure that they get home safely." And that kind of sums up the idea of our mission.
Dutch discovered early on that fulfilling that mission would take more than even the best tag or the strongest swimming. So, along with his brother Vic, who joined the force in 1922, he began a tradition of innovation.
The paddleboard was introduced to Dutch by Duke Kawanamoko, who came over here for the Olympics. They became great friends. The Duke brought his board over and showed Dutch how to surf on a surfboard, and Dutch began to think, well, that's a great idea.
So I thought, well, maybe we ought to get these on the job. But, the city at those days didn't have money. I decided, well, I got a hold of the boss. I told him, I said, if we buy the lumber and give you the lumber, we'll public service build our boards for us. They can at least build a board once in a while, just kill them a little time, or when it's raining you can't send them anywhere, can't they build a board? And they did build our boards, and we put them in service there.
We were able to develop, the first use of what we called torpedo can.
It was steel in the first place, then it was aluminum, now it's plastic. You could swim out there, you could reach back, grab the rope, bring the can up and hand it to somebody, and they wouldn't grab hold of you.
Mr. Ryder at Penn City down there, he showed us a torpedo can that he had made up, and I asked him if we could borrow the thing. But the can was too big and awkward, so later on we kept working with the tin shop, and they began to reduce the can down in size for us. And it was a good can. In those days, it was the best down there because we were the only ones using them.
Infrastructure grew quickly in the early days, starting with the building of the first lifeguard towers.
They were constructed where they had a dory locker on the bottom where we kept our paddle boards, our rescue boards, and our dories, and then the second story was where the lockers, some of them even had refrigerators and stoves in them, and then of course in the tower is where the lifeguard worked you know, during the winter months or when it was a little slow.
So we decided what we needed was a power boat. And so we convinced the city, so they rented one for us. And it's the funniest thing, the boys would run down and jump on the thing, and it never did start. Every time we had to have it to go on the call, it wouldn't work. The city decided they'd have one built special for the job. That was our first lifeguard boat, and it came in service on July 1st in 1924.
That was skippered by Vic Miller, my dad, Guy Montague, Vic Higgins, many of the old-timers that you see in the pictures, and they had quite a legacy because that boat became very, very important with the surf conditions, because what the guards would do is they would swim out, get a victim out of a riptide, then rather than bring him back in through the surf, they would take him out to the rescue boat.
And that little boat had been in the surf, under the water, been towed in, has pulled in thousands of people. I believe that the city finally sold the boat here in 1970, I think it was. Now that boat gave the city service for better than 40-some years.
As the art of lifeguarding grew more sophisticated, it became clear that teamwork was the key. Dutch learned the hard way that better communication had to be a top priority.
The only way we could get a call, we used smoke bombs.
And you would see this flare go up, and that would indicate that the rescue boat was needed. However, many of the bottles that they put the rockets in fell over, and the rockets went along the beach and ran into people and burned some people, so we gave that up.
Its replacement was a crank-operated telephone system, donated by Long Beach Polytechnic High School.
It was stretching from Mohegan then to Belmont Pier. And you know, you go over and ring the phone once, and then it rings out to the end of the pier, and you lift the receiver, and then they had to tell you what number. So odd numbers was on the west end, and even numbers on the east end of there. And so they'd give the number then, and then we knew where we had to go. It was a success.